I'm Ben from Engineered Vintage. Today I'm going to show you how to install our amp step brackets on an 81 to 91 Suburban. We're going to be using my buddy Kalani's Blaze Urban. So this is an 88 Suburban that he's grafted a blazer top onto. It's a pretty cool rig. And so follow me along as we'll put this together. So here we are unboxing our kit. You see it comes with all the brackets, hardware, and the wiring harnesses you need to install an amp step kit from a 2006 Dodge onto an 81 to 91 Suburban. Here we are unboxing the amp step itself from Amp Research. You see this kit comes with a lot of different hardware, and we'll go through how to install this onto this Suburban now. You're gonna have to buy it yourself. So we will start our installation on the passenger side of this Suburban. Okay, so first we're going to start with this bracket and this bracket. The bracket with the EV cutout goes to the outside of the frame. So it goes like this. You have 4 3/8 by 4 inch long bolts. It goes over the frame just like that. We install this about 12.5 inches over from this body mount. On trucks with rear air conditioning, this needs to be installed at about 16.5 inches over. Okay, so now we're going to take these two holes up here. We're going to line those. And then we're going to put a washer and a nylock nut. And we want to make sure when we do this that we're not crimping or blocking any fuel line or brake lines or wires. And we're just going to put this on loose, and then we're going to put the bottom bolts in. And then we have 2 more. We're going to put these right here. Just like that. Grab a washer. And a nylock. So at that point, we're going to double check our distance between here and that body mount. Okay, we're going to leave the bottoms loose right for now. Okay, next we're going to install the rear passenger side frame clamp. So this is installed, you see right where this Suburban frame, it's flat and then it starts to go up. So we're going to put this clamp as close to that curve as we can towards the back of the truck. So we want to do that right about here, and it's going to be just the other side of this body gusset right here. And again, we're going to put the EV one on the outside and the one that's not marked with an EV on the inside of the frame. And I'm going to go ahead and put the washers and the nuts on like I did for the front passenger. So we put a washer here. This is for all these bolts. And then we put a washer on the end, and then the nylock. You want to make sure that this is not blocking your fuel filter on the inside of your frame rail so that you can do maintenance later, and you want to make sure you're not clamping or hitting anything on top of the frame. So that's on, it's just loose. And again, we're going to put it as close as we can to the back, and you can feel this clamp, you can only slide it so far and then it stops sliding. That's right where you want it. You want to make sure you're not hitting the body. There is variation in these trucks over the years. If you need to, you're absolutely able to. You can grind down this bracket a little bit. I don't recommend bashing your Suburban floor. Now we'll go ahead and tighten that up. So here you can see the inner frame bracket. You can see how we're well clear of everything. We're not touching the floor of the Suburban, although it's really close. And then here's the front one. Again, we have the fuel filter right here, so that'll be easy to access still. And then you see that inner frame bracket. Do note how I put it just behind that body hump where the front seats are mounted. That gives you a nice pocket for the amp step motor. Okay, next step, we're gonna put the passenger rear hinge mount. So we're using the amp step. Some of our older version brackets, you have to pull this roll pin out. The newer ones, you don't have to. So we're gonna take some 5/16 by 4-inch bolts. We're gonna put those in like that, again with a 5/16 washer. That's gonna go like that. And then we're gonna put this other bracket that we make like that. Then washers, and then nuts. And we're putting this, these bolts in so they face towards the rear of the truck, just so it looks a little nicer. And we need a 1/2-inch wrench. We're gonna tighten these up. Okay, so now we got a finished assembly that's ready to bolt in. That's gonna bolt right in there. This is the bracket from the Dodge step bracket. We're gonna rob one of these bolts. So this is an M8 by 1.25 bolt. We're gonna take one of these. There's 8 included in the Dodge step. We only actually use 2 of these, one for each side of this truck. We have this bracket and one of the other brackets that's similar to the 2 we already installed. Put this one in first. We use this bolt on the bottom. The M8 bolt goes on the bottom and it goes through the bracket. We have a 5/16 with a washer, again, that goes in this top location. Okay, and then we're going to take this guy, and there's actually a threaded hole. We're going to take the Loctite. In our kit, it includes a little tube of Loctite. We put a little bit of Loctite in those threads. And this piece is actually tapped. You see in there, it's got threads in that hole. On this side, you do need to pull out this roll pin. So that just pulls out with some channel locks. Finagle this guy in here. Okay, and on this side, we're gonna put a 5/16 washer and nut. You see, this is the motor side. So we'll put the motor in, and you can see this is what actually articulates the amp step. So we put a motor in here, and then that turns that gear, which makes the step go in and out. So now that this is assembled, we can put the motor on this side. So again, this is the passenger front we're doing. We're going to take this tape off. So this is a motor cover. Keeps debris out of the motor. So you're going to hook that little end in there. Make sure that's tight. And then this gear is going to interface with the gear I showed you a minute ago. And you just want to, you might have to articulate this step a little bit to get it to go. Okay. And we're going to install this. Okay, and then this uses a Torx head. It's a T25. Okay, now we're going to put this assembly into the frame brackets. So I did tighten these up, made sure the location was where I wanted. I test fitted this to make sure there was clearance in up here. So you want to get it as high as you can without hitting it. Okay, so one thing you want to make sure when you put this in, you want to make sure that these two surfaces are on the same plane. If you tighten this, and I've done this before, you over tighten this, it actually tweaks this one up or down. You don't want to do that because that puts stuff in a bind. So what we're gonna do next, we're gonna put hole number 2 and hole number 2. So the second one down And the second one down, we're going to put a short 3/8 1-inch bolt. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay. I'm going to have to move this a little bit. There'll be another spot that's open. You can move this up and down in 1/4 inch increments. These holes on this bracket are 3/4 of an inch apart. These brackets are 1/2 inch apart. So you can move the bracket up and down a 1/4 inch if you have a body lift, or if you want additional droop for your step. So you could actually mount your step much further down if you wanted. The step will be visible when it's retracted, but you can do that if you want. So there's 4 bolts here. And then we'll put washers on the inside and nuts, and then we'll tighten this up. So we're gonna put the bolts on this one, 2 down and the 2 down. So the second hole down on this bracket, second hole down on this bracket. And this, I'm actually gonna mount this one off to the side a little bit so that I'm on one side of the bracket here. There's a little bit of a gusset here behind this rocker that I'm trying to miss. Just going to put this bracket as far back on the truck as I can. And then we'll put the other bolt in. And one more on this side. And again, I like to put the nuts towards the center so they're just a little more protected. So see how that's going to articulate really nice. I'm going to go ahead and put the washers and the nuts on now. And then I like to measure from the ground to the bottom of this bracket. That's showing about 28 1/4 inches. And I'm going to go measure the other side. It's also at 28 1/4 inches. Now we're ready to put the board on. So next we're going to cut the board. This one I already actually cut. I cut it at 71 inches. They come about 79 inches. We're going to install this board, and we want it to be about 14 inches 14 inches from here, and that creates a nice little pocket right here that puts the board up underneath the gusset right here at the front cab mount. So we're going to go ahead and install this. So to install this, make sure you have your little your aluminum T-nuts. You want to install those in the board, and those actually are going to go in here, and then we're going to put 2 screws up through. So you get to watch me wrestle with that here. Okay, again, I want to be at about 14 inches. Okay, now we're going to put these Allen head bolts up in, making sure they're engaging with that little T slot. So hey, we're going to start installing the driver's side bracket now. So similar to the first side, we're going to put the 4-inch long 3/8 bolts in here. Actually, we'll leave this out for now. This side's got the wiring harness right here. We're going to unhook this wiring harness from that hook. We're also going to make sure we're clear of the emergency brake, parking brake cable. And we're about 14.5 inches away from the side of this cab mount, which seems like a good spot. That puts us right up against this hook, but I think that's going to be a good spot. So now we're going to add the bottom bolts. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and install this inner frame bracket. Grab the top 2 bolts and the bottom 2 bolts. And we're making sure we're clear of the exhaust. So then we're going to put a washer onto each bolt and then a nylock nut. We'll go ahead and do this, put this one on. We're going to start, so we have the motor side hinge that goes on the front. We're going to start by pulling this roll pin out. So we pulled that out. And then we're gonna grab our two brackets. So this is the motor, so sorry, first we're gonna put this piece on. So we'll grab our 5/16 bolt, put that through there, and then we'll grab our M8 bolt. That's gonna go right there. And then we'll flip this over. And then we're gonna get this one in. And we'll put a 5/16 washer and nut. And then we need to tighten that guy. We'll add a little bit of Loctite in here too. Okay, and then we'll hit this guy. So we do want to be mindful of these wires. We're going to want to find a spot that's nice and supported. The wire loom has actually failed here. It's just old and very, very brittle. So we're going to want to protect those. So, and then we want to be mindful of the parking brake cable too. So we're going to put this in, and we're going to see, is this better to put the wire above, which I think it is, or below? And again, we're going to go third hole down to the inside, second hole down on the outside. And so that looks like a nice spot. It's pretty protected. It's free of the parking brake cable, and the wire's looking pretty good. It's not in a bad spot. Okay, and then we'll put this other bolt in. So now we've gotten to the driver rear. Now the driver rear on the Suburban is a little different. So this Suburban had a catalytic converter from the factory, and there is a heat shield right here that bolts to the top of the frame. And so we have this different bracket set up. And so this bracket allows you to unbolt these two bolts. Are 5/16 bolts. And then you can bolt right onto the side of your truck with these two bolts, or you can move it left or right with these other ones. You also still have the 4 holes that you can put it. If you don't have your exhaust shield, you can still mount it similar to the other styles. But we wanted to make this kit as straightforward as we could to install, and this makes for a much more simple install. We do recommend replacing these bolts with, our kit comes with 2 longer grade 5/16 bolts. We're going to replace those. These are about 1 inch long. These are about 1.5 inches. And then we're actually going to put a nut on the back of this as well. So just so that it's adding additional strength. So we're going to start by removing those 2 bolts. So now we're going to take these stock bolts. We're going to use this center hole, and we're going to install this into this mount, and also the top one. Okay, that's a nice strong connection now. Now again, we got to be mindful of these wires right here. So now we're going to go ahead and install this bracket. So now we're ready to put this together. So again, we're going to use 5/16 bolts. Make sure these are staying relatively parallel across the top, or things get a little funky in the next step. So on this side, we're going to match the back side on that side. We actually ended up, we're doing the second hole down here and the second hole down on this bracket. It's a little bit different than the front, mainly because we want to make sure this is parallel, and it just makes the boards much nicer when they're retracted. It's a better look. And the nice thing about our kit is you can adjust this up and down a little bit to put it where you want. I think we're gonna have to go under on this wire. Okay, so after all that, we actually ended up in the second hole down here, top hole in this bracket. We're gonna go ahead and re-secure the wiring harness. This is gonna be right there. It looks like it's gonna be okay to me though. Okay, and this is clear. The wiring harness is in a good spot, and this e-brake cable is in a good spot. Okay, now we're ready to install the board. So we're gonna cut this board now. So these boards for this kit, they come about this one's 79¼ inches long, 79 5/16 inches long. We're gonna cut it at 71. So cut just over 8 inches off. So we're gonna mark it. And you can cut these to the length that's right for you. This is just how we're doing it on this install. We're gonna use electrical tape to get a nice straight line. And now we have our portaband. We're gonna go ahead and cut this with our portaband. Okay. And then all our sins will be hidden with that little plastic end cap. But we do want to make sure we get the burrs off this. Okay, now we're gonna tighten the running board to the steps. Okay, now we will put these little plastic sin forgivers on. So then we're just going to check and make sure it looks like it's going to tuck nice. So there's your installed rocker. We got both rockers installed now. We're going to go ahead and install the motors next and wire it up. Okay, stop. So now we're ready to wire up the amp steps. So for this is it's like a mess of wires. It's actually not as complicated as it looks. So your positive and negative battery, and then these two connections, they go into this little brain that controls your amp steps. And then you have trigger wires. So you have these door trigger wires. There's 4 of them, which is great because on a Suburban there's 4 doors. These 4 wires correspond to 4 different doors. And so you want to hook the wires up to the corresponding door, and we'll go over that in a minute. So first off, we're going to look for a good place to put this inside the engine compartment, probably either on the firewall or on the core support. Someplace that'll stay out of the weather, though, up tight up towards the hood. And then we're also going to plug in the brain. So now we're here in the Suburban engine compartment, and we're wiring up the where we're putting the amp steps. So we ended up putting the relay right here, tucked behind the not the relay, the amp step brain. It's right underneath the hood hinge, right here between the brake booster, next to the windshield wiper motor, all that fun. It's a nice spot tucked up in there. I drilled some holes, and then they recommend mounting these with zip ties. So that's how we mounted those. And then I've got the trigger wire piece. It's routed up here, and then you can see it going in right here into the firewall, and then we'll wire that up in a minute. I need to clean up these zip ties. This is the positive and negative battery. Need to run that over to a 12-volt power, and then this to a ground. And then we have 2 other wires. So we have this one. We're actually going to run that down into that in between the inner fender and the frame. So we'll do that next. So we're just going to fish this down here kind of, and then we'll make the routing a little better. But for now, we're just kind of fish it down in between the wires that are coming out of that fuse block. this is the passenger side door or step trigger wire. We've got it routed through this wiring gutter, and then it's just kind of snaked across, and you can see it actually have it just thrown across the other side of the fender. Getting the wires secured up. So still need to run power and the ground wire. Okay, so we've made this power lead extension. So it's got 12 gauge red wire and 12 gauge black wire. And we're gonna run this right to the battery. The nice thing about this Suburban Kalani's already got these wing nuts on here on the battery post. So we're gonna go actually right with the ground right to the battery. And then we're gonna run this across the back of the firewall, or the top of the firewall there, over to that corner where the amp brain is. So more to come. You can see there we got the amp step brain connected. It's mounted to the fender, and then we have the wires going up. You see those two wires right there. One of those is for the passenger side step, and then the other is the power wire. We have it coming along here, and then we have it routed right up to the battery. So now we're going to take this thing up, and that wire right there, that's for the passenger side step. We need to route that down the fender, and we got to do the same thing on the driver's side. Okay, so we're all wired up. We're going to take this thing up and start hooking up the steps. To show you how I routed this driver's side wire, and it's a little bit of a fun. Let's try to get the light in there. So it's actually routed. I have it coming down the inner fender, and then it's up under here. It goes in there, and then we route it along the inside of that body mount, and you can see it right there. It's the little coil right by the bigger wiring harness. Okay, and then we're gonna come right across here, and we're gonna plug this guy in. And we push that little red connector. Now these extra wires, those are for lights if you're gonna run the amp lights. So there's one for the front set and the one for the back set. And this, we're not gonna hook that up right now. We're gonna coil those up and zip tie them out of the way for now. We're actually gonna secure this guy right here just to make sure it stays out of the suspension. So we're gonna put a zip tie right here to this body hole. And then I actually looped it over the top of this first one. Then we're gonna plug that in and then make sure we push that little red lock in. And so the kit also has these holes in the side of the bracket, so you can zip tie the wires, make them nice and tight to the bracket. So there's a nice shot of the step with the clamp on the passenger side. Okay, just wanted to do a last checkup. So we put the little light wires, we got those wrapped up and coiled up so that they won't get in the way of anything. Everything's secure. We got that wire secured. One thing, we want to make sure that that wire is not going to interfere with that suspension bolt at all. So, and then here's the driver's side. So similarly, we've got that all connected. We do need to go up above here in a minute because that wire is loose. I'm going to take up the slack and coil it up inside the engine bay. So ready to go back up. Okay, so now the fun part. So wiring in the door trigger wires. So we've got those routed through the firewall. So there's 4 trigger wires. There's a violet gray, a violet yellow, and a violet white. The yellow and the white are for the passenger side. the gray and the solid violet of the driver. So we're just going to test this. We'll just ground it out here on the door sill plate. And you can see that the door or the step deploys and then retracts. So that's the front door trigger wire. And then this is the driver's side rear door. And that also triggers the step. And then the step auto retracts a minute after the door shuts. You wire these into this door switch. This driver's side door switch has seen better days. We're probably going to have to replace that. So we'll wire each one of these trigger wires into this door switch. Okay, and so we actually include these diode wiring harnesses in the Engineered Vintage amp step mounting bracket kit. So this little wiring harness, it has a little diode. And a diode is essentially like a one-way valve for electricity. So it allows electricity to flow one way, but not the other. And we wire these in to each door so that when you open a given door, both steps don't deploy. If you didn't have this, when you open any door, both steps would deploy on the Suburban. So we're going to go ahead and wire this in. So for the passenger front door, there's a little trick here. If you take your glove box out, which is these 4 bolts right here, the door trigger wire is taped like right here. I've already kind of torn it back. That's the door trigger wire right there. So now we can tie into that. Okay, another little secret. You can undo the courtesy light right here, and that is your driver wire. This Suburban has air conditioning, so getting that wire is a pain, but you can access the driver door wire right here. So we're going to cut that and install the diode harness right here. So our kit from Engineered Vintage allows you to bolt on the amp steps. We use a 2006 Dodge amp step kit. Our brackets bolt onto the frame, and then it allows the amp step to deploy. You see the steps will retract. And then here we go on the front door. And as you can see, I'm a big guy. We've tested these. These are super stout.
As you see, the Suburban steps, they tuck up really nice. Here's a view with them retracted. When the steps are deployed, they lower down about 11 inches from the outer door sill plate. Here's a nice view of the steps retracted from underneath. And here's a nice view of the steps retracting from underneath the Suburban from a couple different views. You see it tucks nice and tight up into the Suburban. You can also see the clamps and our kit mounted. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to see more videos coming soon from Engineered Vintage on all our cool products we have for vintage trucks. Also, please check out our website at engineeredvintage.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Bruno, where you at? Come on. Come here. Come on. Come on.